Hey, how you doing? It is I, the Terrorific Lady, otherwise known as Brandy, and welcome to Retro Horror School, and happy Friday! Now, you may notice, wow, this looks different. You're not sitting behind your desk. Well, that is because I am testing out how the iPhone that I own records, and we will see how this works. So if it works, then this is how I will record videos from now on. So yes, I am very super excited to see how this turns out. And speaking of videos, I'm going to be doing a movie review today. It is going to be of a movie that I have been wanting to see for quite a while. A movie based on Clive Barker's short story, The Midnight Meat Train.
These represent missing people for the last 3 years.
The only way to make it stop.
I followed them into the subway. He butchers them like cattle. They never find the remains because he unloads the meat somewhere.
Is to go for the ride.
I got a train to catch.
Midnight Meat Train.
But before we get into that, I want to remind you that on my Ko-fi page for $5 a month, I do personalized movie reviews. So you can choose a movie that you would like for me to review. If you're tired of waiting for me to get to a movie, and I will bump your movie to the front of my review list. I will credit it, and you get the satisfaction and glory of knowing I chose your movie. So if you are interested, go to the link above to learn more. So the plot of Midnight Meat Train. There's a struggling photographer named Leon Kaufman, who is played by Bradley Cooper. And he is wanting success, eking out a living with his photography, and through the introduction of friends, he meets this gallery owner portrayed by Brooke Shields, and she's like, show me the darker side of humanity. So that is what he's interested in, showing the darker side of humanity. He takes pictures of things like gang members ganging up on this woman, just like really kinds of nasty, gritty stuff, and totally on accident, he stumbles across this guy named Mahogany, played by Vinnie Jones, known only as the Butcher, the Subway Butcher. And he is a notorious serial killer that has New York kind of quaking in fear. So Leon is fascinated, a very sick kind of fascination with this butcher, and the deeper he gets into the story, the more trouble he finds himself in. And that is the plot for The Midnight Meat Train. It was released in theaters on August 1st, 2008, but not in the way that you would traditionally think. Way back in the day, I'm showing my age here, way back in the day, there was something called dollar theaters or discount theaters. And those kinds of theaters were usually reserved for movies that had already been in the big theaters. They had their run there, and then they would make their way to like these smaller theaters. It was like the last hurdle before they went to DVD. Well, The Midnight Meat Train, because of decisions made by Lionsgate executives, it immediately opened in dollar theaters and discount theaters, which accounts for the film only garnering $3.5 million during its entire theatrical run. And the way the movie was treated pissed Clive Barker off. He believed that Joe Drake, the president of Lionsgate, was shortchanging other people's films to focus more on bigger releases. The politics that are being visited upon it have nothing to do with the movie at all. This is about ego, and though I mourn the fact that The Midnight Meat Train was never given its chance in theaters, it's a beautifully stylish, scary movie, and it isn't going anywhere. People will find it, and whether they find it in midnight shows or they find it on DVD, they'll find it, and in the end, the Joe Drakes of the world will disappear. And this movie has since become a cult classic. The consensus online is that the movie is fairly well loved by a lot of people. They like the gore, they like the story behind it, and they said that the movie, it holds up to the story, The Midnight Meat Train. But what are some of what works and what doesn't work in this movie? So here's what I found that worked about this movie. I like the fact that the setting was mainly during the night and that it was set in the grittiness of the New York City subway. So the setting lent very well to the tone that the movie was trying to establish, which is one of just like utter darkness and despair. And I like the fact that Leon wanted to try and capture the depravity of humanity and the depravity of the city, and his character is kind of questionable. He's kind of like a sleaze in that way. He doesn't go as far as Jake Gyllenhaal did in Nightcrawler. Now that guy was a sleaze, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, a total sleaze bucket. And aside, if you have not yet seen Nightcrawler, do so. It is an excellent movie. But anyway, I liked the fact that Leon was a little depraved. You gotta kind of have a chip missing if you care a little bit more for your own success rather than just humanity as a whole. What I also thought that worked is the gore. So if you're a gore hound, you're going to be totally happy with the gore in this movie. There are throats cut. There are heads bashed in. There are bodies being sliced. There are heads chopped off. There's eyeballs being popped out of heads. Fingernails pulled off. Teeth pulled out. Bodies being prepared for butchery. It's a total gore fest, and as a gore hound, you're going to like it if you like that kind of thing. Also, I thought the acting of Bradley Cooper as Leon and Vinnie Jones as Mahogany, the villain, they did their job. It was a decent performance. Vinnie Jones didn't really talk throughout the movie for reasons. His tongue was torn out of his mouth. You'll find that out once you get to the end of the movie and what happens to Bradley Cooper. Now, here's what did not work about this movie for me. Now, I read the short story, The Midnight Meat Train, right after I watched this movie. Like, I had to find it because it was based on a story. I want to compare. I mean, that's just me. And the movie stripped the social commentary that the story had, and the fact that New York City in and of itself was its own character. The social commentary of the story is pretty much that the rich and the powerful, once you get to the end of the story, feed on those that are considered lesser. And the movie removed that just for the sake of it being a slasher movie. And I wish they would have gone more with that New York was depraved, at least in this story, because of the description of the city in the story. Oh my God, it's almost like poetry. Listen to this. And now, after only 3 months living with the object of adoration, spending his days and nights in her presence, she had lost her aura of perfection. New York was just a city. He had seen her wake in the morning like a slut and pick murdered men from between her teeth and suicides from the tangles of her hair. He had seen her late at night, her dirty back streets shamelessly courting depravity. He had watched her the hot afternoon, sluggish and ugly, indifferent to the atrocities that were being committed every hour in her throttle passages. It was no palace of delights. It bred death, not pleasure. God, like, I wanted to see that description come to life in the movie, and the city of New York come to life as a character. And unfortunately, the movie did not really do that. Now, in spite of there being a lot of gore, there are little to no practical effects in this movie, despite teeth being pulled out and fingernails being torn out. There are not a lot of practical effects. It is mainly CGI, and they look a little ridiculous and dated even for 2008, and I kind of wish they went more practical for the special effects because it would have been awesome. Grr, missed opportunity there. Also, the story makes very clear that Mahogany was chosen like for this duty to serve the others, which are like pretty much those that are in positions of power, to feed them this human flesh. It made that very clear throughout the story, and honestly in the movie you didn't really get much of that. You just thought that Mahogany was just like this depraved murderer, and they were trying to keep his intentions like very guarded, which is fine. But then at the end you get this really jarring kind of exposition dump that we're meant to feed like the monsters, and these monsters are Lovecraftian, and you Leon, you have to serve them now. That just came like out of nowhere. There was no guide post along the way to lead me to this point. So when that ending came, I was like, huh? What the hell? It left me just really confused, and I wish it left the guideposts throughout the movie and just did not jar me with that. So my final verdict of this movie is I would not watch it again. I don't really feel like watching it again. I don't really feel like seeking it out myself and owning it, but I would definitely read the short story again. I thought the short story was fantastic. Highly recommend that. But you may like this movie if you are a person who likes Clive Barker stories, if you like gore, if you're a gore hound, and if you like Lovecraftian turns in horror, then you will like this movie. You can find it streaming for free pretty much everywhere if you don't have a physical copy. So Midnight Meat Train, what do you think about it? Is it your favorite of Clive Barker inspired films? And if it's not, what is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And sadly, class is dismissed, everybody. But I will see you next time. Bye!